Now moving on, an estimated 10,000 protesters took to the streets of Dublin today in a national protest against government policy on asylum seekers. And now in contrast to a previous march in Dublin, which saw a bus set fire to, and despite a heavy police presence on the streets today, there was no trouble at the protest today. And on my show earlier this afternoon, what struck me was that the crowds were made up of normal islanders, mothers, fathers, grandmothers and children. And here's what some of them had to say to our reporter, Doogie Beattie.
I'm here because the government won't listen to the Irish people. We're second-class citizens in our own country and they need to be out.
Why am I here? Because I don't want to see this country go like England.
I mean, we've got young children, so we have, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, Irish people are on the streets. If we haven't got enough houses to house our own, how are we meant to help all of this?
I have a clear message for Taoiseach Harris and the rest of our government. This is Ireland, our Ireland. And we will fight like hell to save her.
That's the spirit. And now joining me from The Liberal, an independent news outlet in Ireland, is Robert Long. Robert, welcome to the show. So you were at the protest today. You were filming it on the front line. We also covered it on GBNews. We spoke to lots and lots of people there, ordinary islanders who simply had enough.
That's right. I mean, you summed it up yourself today. What we saw today was a swathe of mostly middle class and working class people who simply feel like they've been relegated to second or even third class citizens in their own country.
And the numbers are astonishing, Robert. Over 1 million immigrants have gone into Ireland, and there's only a population, 5-6 million. And an astonishing thing I read today, 50% of the Irish public now back some form of border checks.
Well, I know. I mean, history is very ironic. The fact that border controls are now being demanded for by people in the Republic of Ireland shows how incompetent our government actually are. And we've put ourselves in a situation now where our government allowed us to be used and our border to be used as a stick to beat England over the head with, to punish them for Brexit. And now we're reaping the consequences of it.
Now, of course, Robert, the Irish politicians would say they are doing the dutiful thing. They are offering a safe refuge. Particularly, they've overreached and been very, very good when it comes to example for supporting Ukrainian refugees. But people such as yourself and on the streets today, they just feel it's a case of the numbers being too great.
Well, we've taken in 110,000 Ukrainians. And we now know for a fact that many Ukrainians coming to Ireland were coming from other safe countries, from the likes of Belgium, Poland, the UK. We even had examples of Ukrainians coming from Canada, because the social welfare and housing system in Ireland has been so overly generous. Since we cut our welfare, we've seen a dramatic fall in the number of Ukrainians coming in. But the government are still pushing ahead with plans to build modular housing projects solely for Ukrainian refugees in the midst of an unprecedented housing crisis and homelessness crisis.
OK, Robert Long, thanks for joining us. That's from The Liberal, an independent news outlet in Ireland, doing great work today. Thanks for joining us. And joining me now to talk through today's events is the Telegraph journalist Michael Murphy. Michael, welcome to State of the Nation. So what we saw today was an extraordinary, calm, civil protest, ordinary working and middle-class Dubliners. These aren't far-right extremists. They're not the frothing racists that they're made out to be by the media, by the political class, just ordinary people saying enough is enough.
Yes, I think so, Martin. Thanks for having me. I've seen the footage, as I'm sure you have, of mothers, daughters, children. I think your last guest said that there was a wide variety of people from different classes and different walks of life. I think it's become untenable now for the government to pretend that they don't have a problem with mass immigration in Ireland. And I think that the people have woken up to what a massive con it is on the Irish public.
And I wonder, Michael, we are, of course, about to see elections in June, European Union elections, and we're expecting the political parties who are advocating for tighter control of borders, who are pushing back against the EU's open borders policy, we're expecting them to make great gains.
That might be the case across Europe. I don't know about Ireland. I think it's probably too soon for any of the populist parties in Ireland to really make any inroads. I think what's more likely to happen is that certain independents who have been speaking out since the start about immigration may see some gains. But it would be very interesting to see where this populist energy that we're seeing on the streets of Dublin goes, if it does indeed find a vessel like in other European countries.
Michael, it's been astonishing to see. Remember, there was a strict resistance to any form of border control during Brexit. The Good Friday Agreement would bring it all tumbling down. And yet now a poll out today saying almost half of those in the Republic want there to be stricter border controls to try and control asylum. Astonishing.
Well, it's quite absurd. I don't know, you're probably old enough to remember, Martin, how often we were warned about the threat of violence at that border if it was to be policed. And now, because the Irish government has been fooling around promiscuously with mass migration, people are willing to erect a border there. It doesn't really compute. I don't understand where the fear and the foreboding has gone. Just because it's to do with immigration and not Britain leaving the European Union.
OK, thank you very much, Michael Murphy. Let's quickly pop back to the studio with Stephen and Lord Moylan. Stephen, what's your reaction to this incredible state of affairs that people seem to want some form of border control on the island of Ireland, something which was the absolute antithesis?
Well, like most people who know the Irish border, it's about 304 miles, and nobody actually knows what it is. You know, there's great parts that have never been defined. We'd think that the last thing anybody would sign up for now would be a return to an armed or a uniformed presence on the border. But look, a couple of things about this. There was a particularly horrific murder about 2 or 3 years ago in Offaly, where a young girl was killed by an immigrant to the country. That actually sparked a huge number of riots and protests. Yes. Since then, there have been anti-Polish ones in Dublin. So this is not actually anything new. What is unusual is that Ireland is the only country in Europe which has never, ever had a fascist party. We've had one in this country. Every other country in Europe's had them. Ireland has never, ever had one. This is a complete change from the Irish psyche. It's something completely new to me and rather worrying. And I think as we come closer to the election in June, then I think we will actually see some very, very worrying aspects. But look,
why is it worrying if ordinary citizens want to control immigration?
I'll tell you what worries me, Martin. It worries me when a government is out of touch with its constituency.
Well, they are. Because the people are saying control the border and they won't.
Yeah, because don't forget, one of the reasons why these people are coming to Ireland is because there isn't a border with the rest of the European Union, because they can actually come straight in. There are some people apparently coming in from the north. Now, when they say that the benefits in the Republic of Ireland are better than they are in the UK, no, they're not. The benefits in the UK are much, much better, which is one of the reasons why there's a problem with unification. So I think at the moment, the one sliver of good news about this is that thing which we saw today, I think it's in Ballsbridge and various other parts of Dublin, was actually very peaceful. And it's not often that you can get thousands of people protesting on the streets of a European city and you don't actually see violence. So let's get this sorted out and discuss it rationally. But at the moment, I think, as everybody's saying, there isn't an obvious party, even though in the Oireachtas you have about 11 or 12 independents at the present time. So that could be a sign for the future.
Lord Moylan, what's your take on this today?
Well, first of all, I think it's ridiculous to move from a demonstration which everyone has described as being full of ordinary working class and middle class people, and Stephen starts talking about fascism. I mean, that's a fascist party.
I said it isn't a fascist country.
No, but you said they've never had a fascist party.
No, they haven't.
Well, you don't have to have a fascist party to be concerned about immigration.
It's indicative.
So it's not indicative. The fact is that these are ordinary people. The truth is that the Irish elite, including it's not just the government that's not listening, it's the opposition.